she whispered. "I've never seen the ocean at night," I said. "Then let me take you there tonight." The aft spring line snapped like a gunshot. The 50-foot sloop beside mine swung hard toward the concrete breakwater. Rain ripped across the harbor. Wind screamed through the rigging. A loose halyard struck a mast somewhere in the dark, fast and metallic, like a warning no one could silence. A woman stood on the pitching deck with a mooring line wrapped around one bare hand. "Let go!" I shouted. She either did not hear me or refused. The rope jerked tight and dragged her toward the rail. I clipped my harness to the dock cable, grabbed a coil from my cutter, and crossed the gap as the sloop heaved under me. My boots hit wet fiberglass. The woman slipped to one knee but kept hold of the line. I caught the load above her hands, wrapped it around the winch, and leaned back until the rope bit into the drum. The stern stopped less than a yard from the wall. For 3 seconds, neither of us moved. Salt water ran from her dark hair. Her jacket was too thin for a North Atlantic squall. Blood marked the center of her palm where the rope had burned through the skin. "Inside," I said. "I can still help." "You already did. Go below before the next gust puts you in the water." Something in my voice reached her. She released the line and disappeared through the companionway. I doubled the bow line, shifted every fender, and checked the deck fittings. The forward port cleat lifted whenever the hull surged. The backing plate beneath it was missing. That made the storm only the first problem. Below deck, the woman stood by the navigation table, pressing a paper towel against her palm. The cabin smelled of wet teak, cold diesel, and old varnish. A stack of invoices sat beneath a plastic sleeve. The top page carried the words, "Notice of Maritime Lien." I found the heater breaker and switched it on. The fan coughed, then pushed weak warmth through the vent. "My name is Elena Collins," she said, "and yes, I know the boat is falling apart." I was going to ask where the first aid kit is. Her eyes narrowed, then moved toward a locker. Second shelf. I cleaned the rope burn and handed her the tape. She wrapped the gauze herself. "I'm Elias Morgan. The cutter next door is mine." She looked toward the storm. "If this boat damages yours, it won't." The certainty unsettled her more than anger would have. She straightened the invoices as if neat paper could make the situation less dangerous. The sloop was named North Star. Her father had owned it for 26 years. After his death, Elena inherited the boat. 6 months of overdue marina fees and a restoration contract signed while he was ill. Cole Marine had promised to replace the rigging, reinforce the deck hardware, and service the engine. They billed nearly $40,000. Most of the work had never been done. When Elena refused the final payment, Vance Cole filed a maritime lien, reported the boat unsafe, and persuaded the insurer to block normal departure. Every repair yard Elena called refused to touch a vessel under an active dispute. Her lawyer could challenge the lien, but the court moved in weeks. The marina deadline moved in days. Cole wanted the money or the boat. Elena opened a small drawer beneath the chart table and showed me a folded note in her father's handwriting. It contained 3 lines of tide calculations and 1 unfinished sentence. "Take her out when the work is done." She pressed the paper flat with her bandaged palm. He believed he would finish the restoration. She said, "The boat rolled against the dock, making the glass in the cabinet tremble." He died before he learned how much Cole had taken. She refolded the note along its worn creases. No tears, no speech. Just careful hands protecting the last instruction her father had left behind. Elena could not walk away. North Star was the last thing her father had left her, and the only asset untouched by the corporate scandal that had ended her consulting career. I had become involved because her loose vessel had nearly crushed mine, because an unsafe boat endangered everyone on that dock, and because my captain's license had trained me to deal with danger before it collected a body. "The forward cleat is lifting," I said. "If it tears out, the bow will swing across the fairway." I paid Cole to reinforce it. He didn't. Her jaw tightened. I gathered that. "I can install a temporary backing plate tonight." "I can't afford your rate." "I'm not offering a contract. I'm preventing your boat from becoming a weapon." The edge of her mouth moved. Not a smile. Almost. I removed my foul weather coat and placed it on the settee. You're shaking. I said, use that while I get the tools. I'm fine. The heater clicked. Her wet sleeve trembled against the counter. Of course, I said. The coat is for the furniture. When I returned, she was wearing it. The storm kept the harbor closed for 2 days. By dawn, broken boards and branches floated between the slips. Nora Bell, the marina manager, walked the docks with a yellow rain hood, a clipboard, and the expression of someone personally offended by weather. She stopped beside North Star while I tightened the last bolt beneath the cleat. Elena, I need an answer before Friday, Nora said. The insurer confirmed the movement hold. You may transit only to an approved survey berth under harbor authorization. If the boat stays here past the deadline, the marina begins removal. So Cole files a lien, reports the boat unsafe because of work he failed to do, then waits for the marina to hand it to him. That is one interpretation. It is the accurate one. I believe you, Nora said. The hearing officer will not care what I believe. Bring dates, records, and proof. Elena handed her a waterproof folder. Nora opened it. Photographs, bank transfers, emails, serial numbers, every page tabbed and indexed. You prepared this overnight? I used to audit companies that preferred not to admit they had stolen from themselves. Nora gave the folder back. Then make them admit it. Elena climbed into the cabin and returned with 2 mugs. She handed one to me without asking how I took my coffee. Black, exactly right. I opened the engine compartment while she worked at the navigation table. The auxiliary diesel turned over, but would not hold an idle. A corroded ground connection explained the electrical failures. A clogged fuel filter explained the rest. I held up the filter. Cole invoiced you for this 6 weeks ago. Elena photographed the date stamp, then compared it with her records. He also invoiced my father for the same filter 3 months earlier. A duplicate? Maybe more. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Within minutes, she found 3 invoices using the same rigging serial number. 2 completion photographs showed the same scratch on the same turnbuckle, though they were dated months apart. He copied proof of work, she said. The generator started behind us. Warm air filled the cabin. She looked at the screen, then at the engine. You found the physical lie. You found the pattern. For the first time since the storm, she smiled without stopping herself. We created a chain of custody log. I removed each suspect part with clean gloves, sealed it in a numbered bag, and marked the time. Elena matched every item to an invoice. At dusk, she placed a strip of masking tape above my socket set. Clean. Then she labeled the tray of removed bolts. Evidence. Do not touch. I pointed at the tape. You realize this is my toolbox. You realize your organization system was metal things near other metal things. It has served me across 3 oceans. It has offended me for 12 hours. Rain ticked against the hatch. The heater hummed. For a few minutes, the lien, the deadline, and the storm moved to the edge of the room. The next morning, Vance Cole arrived. He wore polished dock shoes and the confidence of a man accustomed to finding people tired enough to surrender. He stepped onto North Star's finger pier without permission. Elena met him at the lifelines. You were told to communicate through counsel. I came to prevent damage to my collateral. Your collateral? The vessel secures the unpaid balance. The balance is disputed. His eyes shifted to me. And you are? The captain whose boat almost got hit because your crew failed to install a backing plate. He looked at the repaired cleat. Unauthorized work on a liened vessel can complicate your position. Miss Collins. Elena raised her phone. The recording light was visible. You were standing on a private dock after written notice not to board. Nora is 10 yards away. The security camera is above your right shoulder. Would you like to continue? Vance glanced toward the marina office. Nora stood in the doorway with her arms folded. The final payment is due Monday. He said, pay it. And this ends. Release the service records, withdraw the false safety report, and provide the parts you billed to my father. You are in no position to make demands. Then test that theory at the hearing. His expression hardened. A licensed captain should be careful about attaching his name to an uncertified vessel. That is why every repair is documented. I said, and if she asks you to move it, I will follow the harbor master's authorization, not your preference. Vance left without another word. Elena waited until his car disappeared before lowering the phone. Her thumb shook once over the screen. I opened the cabin door. The soup Nora brought is getting cold.
She brought soup?
She said it was for the storm crew. There are only 2 of us. Nora uses generous definitions when she wants information. Elena followed me below. Steam rose from the container, smelling of tomato and basil. After 3 bites, the tension left her shoulders. "Why are you still here?" she asked. The question was quiet enough to disappear beneath the rain. I set my spoon down. "Because Cole is counting on you being alone." That is not an answer. It is the part of the answer that matters tonight. Her eyes held mine. For a second, the hard control in her face slipped, revealing how exhausted she was. Then she pushed the larger half of the bread toward me. "You skipped breakfast," she said. It was not gratitude. It was the first time she had taken care of something on my side of the table. That afternoon, I met Harbor Master Theo Grant above the fuel dock. "There is one legal route," he said after reading Elena's documents. "Restricted transit to the state survey berth at Breakwater Point. Licensed master in command. Written risk plan. Temporary insurance. High water window only." "When?" "Thursday night. After that, the tide is wrong for 9 days." Elena's deadline was Friday. The filing and coverage cost $840. Theo said, permit must be submitted 24 hours before departure. Fog is expected. The east bar shifted in the storm. "I'll sound it before we go." "You cannot. The harbor remains closed to test runs." "Then I'll use radar, the latest depth reports, and a hard abort point." Theo studied me. "You are doing this because it is safe?" "The boat has one lawful path left." He nodded. Elena waited at the navigation table when I returned. An old radio from her father's time lay on a towel, its knob stiff and wiring brittle. "I found this behind the chart drawer," she said. "He used to listen to weather reports on it." Sentimental restoration is not on tonight's list. It is now labeled. A strip of tape on the radio read, "Later." I set the permit application beside it. Her eyes moved across the page. $840, she said. "The estate account can cover it when the transfer clears." She opened her banking portal. A red banner appeared. "Account access restricted pending fraud review." For a moment, the heater fan was the only sound in the cabin. Cole had reported that Elena was trying to dispose of secured property. The bank froze the restoration escrow. "How long is the review?" I asked. 10 business days. "We have one." "I know." She took the boat keys from a hook and laid them on the lien notice. "What are you doing?" "Preparing the surrender packet for Nora. If the marina removes the boat, at least the evidence stays intact." Her voice remained level. The keys clicked against the table under her hand. I opened my satchel and placed Theo's stamped receipt beside them. The permit fee was paid. She looked at the captain of record line, then at me. "You paid it." "As the applicant, I secured the coverage. I can't promise when I can reimburse you. You do not owe me dinner, loyalty, affection, or anything else. This is a documented vessel expense." I placed a one-page agreement beside the receipt. "Repay it from the estate when the bank releases the funds. Replace me as captain after the survey if you choose." She read every line. "Did you write this?" "Ben Sawyer did, maritime attorney, former deckhand. He believes my paperwork needs adult supervision." A breath escaped her that was almost a laugh. She signed the agreement. The keys stayed on the table, but she moved them off Cole's notice. Thursday became a race against the tide. I found a worn retaining pin in the steering cable. Elena matched it to an invoice Cole had marked complete. We replaced it and bagged the old part. We tested the engine under load. It held. We measured the draft, calculated minimum clearance, and filed an abort point. If the depth fell below 8 feet before the second marker, we would turn back. At sunset, Nora arrived with temporary insurance papers and a thermos. "Peppermint tea," she said. "Coffee will only convince him he can control weather." "I can control a checklist." Elena raised a clipboard. "Not anymore." Nora smiled. "Good. He needed competition." Fog swallowed the outer docks just after 8. North Star's engine vibrated under my boots. Elena wore a flotation jacket over a wool sweater, her safety tether clipped to the cockpit rail. I checked the radar, compass, sounder, and engine gauges. Then I checked them again. Elena stood beside the wheel, looking toward the breakwater. "My father never took me beyond the harbor after sunset," she said. "He said night water demanded experience I didn't have." The fog thinned for a moment. Open sea appeared between the lights. Her voice dropped. "I've never seen the ocean at night." I tightened the strap on her tether and met her eyes. "Then let me take you there tonight." The words stayed between us for one quiet second. Her expression changed. Not softer, exactly, but unguarded. The woman who had faced a storm, a lien, and a man trying to take her father's boat looked suddenly afraid of something smaller and more dangerous. Believing me. "I need you to bring us back too," she said. The wind tugged a strand of hair across her cheek. "That is the plan. No heroic improvisation? Only professionally approved improvisation." She exhaled, and the fear loosened its grip. Then I handed her the radio. "You remain clipped in. Call every depth change and radar contact. If I say abort, you do not argue." Her mouth curved. "I reviewed your checklist, Captain." That was not agreement. It was professional intimidation. "Acceptable." She requested departure clearance. At 21:07, Nora released the stern line. Theo's voice came through the speaker. "North Star, restricted transit approved." Elena answered, "North Star copies." We moved into the channel. The harbor vanished behind us, beyond the breakwater. The ocean was not black. It was blue, silver, and moving gray. Moonlight pressed through the fog in broken strips. Each swell lifted the bow into pale light, then lowered us into shadow. Elena stared for half a breath. "Beautiful," she whispered. "Depth." She checked. 34 feet. "Better." Her smile remained in her voice as she called the next number. The first mile passed cleanly. The radar showed one fishing vessel 2 miles east. Engine temperature held. Steering answered every correction. Then the current changed. The storm had pushed sand toward the east bar, narrowing the channel. Depth fell from 22 feet to 16 in less than a minute. 15, Elena called. I reduced speed and adjusted west. 14. A swell struck the starboard quarter. The bow yawed. I countered before the stern could slide. The alarm sounded at 12 feet. Its sharp pulse filled the cockpit. Elena braced one hand against the rail. The other stayed on the radio. 10.8. Our draft was 6.5 feet. Each trough stole inches from our clearance. The second marker appeared on radar. North of its charted position, the buoy had shifted. "Marker is off station," Elena said. "I see it." The planned route no longer matched the water. I turned west another 2 degrees, reading the current line instead of the buoy. 9.6. The alarm continued. "Prepare to abort." She checked the route card, then the radar. "Contact astern, fishing boat entering the channel." A turn would put us broadside to the current and across the approaching vessel's path. The easy exit had closed. "Call them." Elena transmitted our position and draft. The fishing captain slowed outside the marker. "Channel clear behind us," she said. I brought the engine up and held the new heading. The depth stayed at 9.6. A grinding vibration rose through the wheel. For one sickening instant, I thought the keel had touched bottom. Elena heard it too. Her face lost color, but she did not abandon her station. "Engine temperature normal," she said. "No loss of speed, depth holding." A loose locker door slammed below. Not the keel. I did not have time to feel relief. Spray struck the windshield. The hull shuddered as the keel crossed the edge of the bar. Elena's fingers tightened around the microphone, but her voice remained steady. 9.8. A wave lifted us. 10.4. The next number took too long. 11.7. The alarm stopped. Neither of us spoke until the depth reached 18 feet. Then the fog opened. Moonlight spread across the ocean in a silver road. North Star settled into deep water as though the boat had waited years to breathe. Elena lowered the microphone. "That is the ocean at night," I said. She looked across the water, then back at me. "No," she said softly. "That was trust at night." My hand moved toward hers on the rail, then stopped. She closed the distance herself. Her fingers wrapped around mine, cold from the air and steady from the work. We stood that way until the survey harbor lights appeared through the fog. At Breakwater Point, a technician guided us into the berth. Line secured, engine off. The sudden silence rang in my ears. Elena opened Nora's thermos. "Peppermint," she said. "Tragic. You crossed a shifted sandbar in fog, and tea frightens you? It has leaves floating in it. That is how tea works." She poured 2 cups anyway. We drank beneath the cockpit light while the hull clicked against the fenders. Fear remained in her eyes, but relief had finally reached it. The hearing began at 9 the next morning. Review Officer May Shaw sat at the head of the table. Theo held the transit file. Nora joined by video. Vance arrived with his attorney and 3 binders. Elena carried 1. Every page mattered. Vance claimed North Star had been moved recklessly and that Elena had altered the vessel to avoid payment. May listened, then turned to Elena. The movement was authorized. Elena said, "Captain Morgan filed the route, insurance, weather plan, and abort criteria on time." Theo placed the stamped permit on the table. The transit was lawful. May said. Elena displayed 4 invoices. These invoices repeat serial numbers and photographs. 2 images were created on the same afternoon, though the bills are 11 weeks apart. Vance's attorney leaned forward. "Metadata can be altered." "Yes," Elena said, "which is why we also have the original email files, manufacturer records, and the physical parts removed from the boat." I placed the sealed evidence bags on the table. I explained the missing backing plate, the galvanized bolts, the old filter, and the worn steering pin. Each defect matched work Cole had certified as complete. Nora confirmed the failed line and loose cleat had endangered the marina. Theo confirmed North Star had met every condition of the transit. Vance stopped tapping his pen. May turned toward him. "Do you have purchase records tying these serial numbers to this vessel?" "They are maintained at our yard." "Were they produced when Miss Collins requested them?" "We require final payment before releasing internal records. Safety records are not leverage in a billing dispute." His attorney whispered to him. May closed the file. "The movement hold is lifted for survey and corrective work. The duplicate documentation and safety certifications will be referred to the Contractor Licensing Division." She looked at Elena. "This ruling does not erase the lien. Your counsel must contest it separately." "I understand. Do you have counsel?" A voice came from the back of the room. "She does now." Ben Sawyer stood by the door with a legal pad. He had sailed with me years ago before becoming a maritime attorney. He sat beside Elena. "We will challenge the lien today." He said, "Mr. Cole will have to prove every charge." Vance looked at me. I lifted one shoulder. "Adult supervision." Elena covered a smile. The survey lasted 6 hours. The hull was sound. The rigging required adjustment, not replacement. The cleat needed a permanent stainless backing plate. The engine passed after 1 fuel line replacement. At sunset, the surveyors signed the report. Elena stared at his signature without moving. "Miss Collins," he said. She touched the page with 2 fingers, as if testing whether the ink was real. "My father spent his last year believing this boat was becoming safer." She said, "Thank you for telling me what is actually true." The surveyor nodded and left us alone on the pier. Elena pressed the report to her chest, then faced North Star. "We kept her," she whispered. The words broke on the last syllable. I stepped close enough for her to choose. She crossed the distance and rested her forehead on my shoulder while Tide tapped the pilings. North Star was insurable again. The remaining problems took 6 weeks, not 6 minutes. Ben challenged the lien. Cole failed to produce valid records. The fraud complaint collapsed. Elena's escrow was released, and the court reduced his claim to the small, legitimate balance. His safety work authority was suspended during the investigation. Nora placed North Star on a payment plan for the overdue slip fees. Elena did not return to corporate consulting. She used what she found in her father's invoices to build a contract compliance service for boat owners and independent yards. Nora referred the first client. Theo referred the second. By the 6th week, Elena had enough signed work to cover the marina plan and continue the restoration. My own decision arrived in an email offering a transatlantic delivery from Boston to Lisbon. I accepted. For years, leaving had been easier than promising I would return. No chart could guarantee people. 2 days before my departure, North Star received final operating clearance. A clerk met us on the pier with the registry update. Primary owner? Elena Collins. Authorized master? She stepped beside me. Elias Morgan. Permanent or voyage specific? Elena looked at me first. Permanent, unless Captain Morgan chooses to withdraw. She was not claiming me or turning help into obligation. She was opening a place and leaving the door unlocked. Permanent, I said. The clerk made the entry. After he left, Elena handed me a brass key. Cabin and dock box. The agreement inside keeps work and personal choices separate. Ben wrote that. Ben wrote 3 versions. He enjoys suffering. He says the same about sailing. I turned the key in my hand. I leave for Lisbon on Monday. I know. I'll be gone 5 weeks. I know that too. Wind moved through the newly tuned rigging, making the mast hum. Elena pointed toward the cockpit. The weather is clear. The tide is favorable. The restrictions are gone. What are you proposing? A proper night sail. No emergency permit. No fraudulent contractor. No fog thick enough to hide a lighthouse. You prepared a route? She handed me a clipboard. The chart, forecast, checklist, and return time were clipped in perfect order. At the bottom, she had written, "Peppermint tea prohibited by captain's authority." I never issued that order. You complained with sufficient formality. We left the harbor at 9. This time, the markers stood where the chart said they would. The depth never dropped below 26 feet. A light breeze filled the mainsail beyond the breakwater, and I shut down the engine. Silence spread across the water. Not empty silence, living silence. The sail tightened overhead. Moonlight traced our wake. From the cabin, Elena's father's old radio crackled to life. I had repaired it during the final week, replacing the brittle wiring and cleaning the corroded contacts. A weather voice murmured beneath the rush of water along the hull. Elena stood at the wheel. You fixed it. It was labeled later. I assumed that meant after every other impossible task. It did. She listened to the forecast, then rested one hand on the wheel. My father made me repeat weather reports back to him. He said hearing the words made you respect them. What does it say? Clear through morning. Wind 8 knots southwest. No warnings. Your interpretation? She looked toward the silver path ahead. We have time. I moved beside her, close enough that our shoulders touched beneath our jackets. When I return from Lisbon, North Star will need a longer sea trial. She will. Your business will need someone to inspect the mechanical evidence before you terrify another contractor with orange tabs. It might. And the cabin key? Her fingers slid into mine on the wheel. It will still work. She reached into her jacket and placed her father's folded note beneath the compass light. The unfinished sentence glowed against the worn paper. Take her out when the work is done. Elena picked up a pencil and completed it. And bring her home. She handed the pencil to me. Beneath her words, I wrote one more line. Together, a wave passed beneath the hull, gentle enough to lift us together. Elena turned toward me. I spent a year believing that accepting help meant giving someone control. She said, you never asked me to give up anything. You gave me facts, choices, and room to stand beside you. The old radio whispered the forecast again. I squeezed her hand. You stood there on your own. Yes, she said, but I am choosing not to stand there alone. Behind us, the harbor lights had become a thin gold line. Ahead, the moon opened a path across the water. For the first time in years, returning did not feel like the end of a voyage. It felt like part of the plan. The end.